listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again, and today, just like any other time, we have a special guest. We have William Yeske. He has an amazing book that you need to check out today, Damn the Valley. And I went to his website. His website is amazing, damnthevalleybook.com. And he has a lot of amazing resources talking about his career in the military, but most importantly, about his books and his events and everything that you can learn about him personally. First and foremost, William, thank you for taking time. How are you doing today?
Man, Shamaya, that's quite the intro. Thank you. No, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir, man. I had to stop there because your bio is like 50 minutes long. I had to condense it, man. But just long story short, you have amazing service that you serve in the military as a combat veteran. You did over 11 years in the United States Army. Real quickly, before we dive into the book, kind of tell us a little bit about your experience in the military. And thank you for your service, sir.
Oh, no, man. And thank you for the support. That's really what it is like the support of the American people behind the troops and stuff. That has really, that's been the difference in everything. And sort of in the more current times is like people understand that certain actions that have to be taken out there, that's not responsible. That's more of on the politician end of things, but that they actually understand and that they back, the Americans and stuff that go and fight for freedoms and whatnot. Not so much being helped with that on the policies and stuff, but understanding that the troops have to get out there and do what they have to do on the battlefield to win, really.
And you have a spot on your website that I thought was pretty powerful, the Wall of Stories. And if you can real quickly, tell us a little bit about why you made this page on your website.
Really? So, man, that was one of the things, and that's really what all of this is about, is being able to share your own story. And I opened that up just in the realization that, through this, there's been other people that have opened up their own stories, so like the book is my story, but then it's also triangulated from the other guys that were there in the platoon and stuff. And for them to tell some of the things that they told me and open their hearts up about that nobody knew up to like this point. There's like some stories in here that actually keep the memories of these people alive, and essentially like they really do bring these people forward and their story, and it makes them alive to maybe people who hadn't been able to experience them. Maybe someone's kids and stuff that were younger, and they might be a Gold Star family, unfortunately, or maybe someone just doesn't understand why maybe their dad doesn't talk about their time in service, or their uncle, they kind of shy away from that topic, and they're like, man, why, what was the experience? Well, he was in a pretty heavy combat zone. So, but then that's all you really ever get. So this book kind of opens up, those stories and stuff to people, but I wanted to make it to where other people could share as well. So I kind of open up that point on there to like, hey, as this book gets attention and stuff, I want to bring it to other people as well and open that outlet and be like, hey guys, like I'll put this stuff up on here, pre-screened, of course, but, as long as it's respectful and as long as it's something that I think that the community, would benefit from hearing, which is really anything. Everybody has their own perspective to anything. That was another thing there is like you have in an infantry company, it's around 150 people. And if you experience a traumatic event as a company, sort of as we did within that valley over the time we were there, those 150 people, each one of them have their own story, and every single one of them is true because that's how that particular person experienced it. So it becomes powerful in that way, but it's important that those guys have a voice as well.
The book, Damn the Valley, it's a powerful title. to kind of explain to the audience a little bit about the meaning of the phrase and the backdrop of everything that you kind of set in motion throughout the book?
So the Arghandab River Valley, now Damn the Valley is kind of a saying, and I think that's kind of why it resonates, because it's really been, that phrase and stuff, you can look at it, and I almost would say that you can probably go back throughout history, through these areas, and you probably had people utter very close to the same phrase, just because, here you are in a valley. So traditionally, in a military scope of things, you want to be on the high ground. You don't want to be in the valley. And it's not that the position that we were in was indefensible, but it was almost like this particular valley it had this draw and it had this pull and it just sucked you into it. And it really was the valley of the shadow of death, if you want to, really go there, just because of how dense everything was, like as far as, the amount of enemy and the amount that they really they emplaced themselves within the civilian populace. So you never knew, who the enemy was, to a point, but, the amount of landmines out there, they did a survey, like a ground survey later on. I think it was around 2012. And it was something like every 200 square feet, they had found a landmine, like in that area. It was just absolutely insane. But the Arghandab River Valley is a portion of Afghanistan outside of Kandahar. There was actually a battle back in '87 with the Russians, and kind of you read about some of the exact same occurrences happening, especially with the brigade or the battalion that was there before us that we replaced. We replaced 5.2 Strikers, and they had a really bad time there as well. But really the phrase "damn the valley" started being uttered as, I think it was December 26th was the first killed in action we had in that valley. And that was Specialist Jason Johnston. And in that particular instance, I had actually stepped over the initiator for that landmine. It could have been me, and he got he was killed. A few other of the guys were taken out of the fight, and just as time went on and as more people were hit by these anti-personnel mines, and that morale gets pulled away from you, it just became like almost a curse. The valley was a curse, and it just was like, damn the valley, damn it. They took another one. And it even continued after, when we were back, they started, saying it about somebody who might have passed later on, either from medical complications or from suicide, unfortunately. But yeah, they're still saying that same thing.
We're talking to our guest, William Yeske. You can go to his website, damnthevalleybook.com. You also get the book on Amazon. When you spoke of morale in the book, it mentions about the casualty rates in Purple Hearts. Kind of share a little bit about that piece of information in that book.
Absolutely. So, what I was saying before, you got an infantry company of around 150, roughly 150 or so men. And our casualty rate was around 52%, which that means you look at that group of 150, you pretty much split them in half and say half of you guys are coming back wounded in one way or another, possibly not coming back at all. And really, quite honestly, the entire group is going to come back different, because you go through something like that, it's going to be traumatic, no matter what you do.
When people read this book almost feels like it can be, you tell me how you feel about this. A lot of times you read military books, a lot of people say, man, this sounds like it would be a movie or a TV show, series. I mean, what do you feel about when people, tell these stories in books, and sometimes they become a movie or a TV series?
That is, and I've already had, because I have the professional version of LinkedIn and stuff, so I can see who's looking at me. And I already see this thing's getting attention.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird when you sort of have things almost spoken into existence. Like there's a pathway with this, and there's too many strange instances along the way, like just crazy coincidences that like I know better. I know that it's like the universe kind of either resonating or aligning with itself, because there's just a feeling behind this one to where, there's actually, the guys, and I mentioned it in the book, that we would hear our sister company, Charlie Company, getting into firefights across the river from us, like day in and day out, to where we were having to do this war of attrition over landmines. And, we were begging to go over there. But so these guys are actually, this thing has inspired them to bring forward their own book as well. And there's other guys out there that were there who are also bringing their stories together. So, I mean, it's inspiring others to bring forward their own stories through this. And it's just, if that's how the word gets out on this, and as long as the stories kept true, because when you read this book, these stories, it's just presented in such a way to where it's not your normal military book. It's not dry. It's from the ground perspective. And I kept it at a high school reading level, not really to like be insulting or anything, but for two reasons. Is number one, your standard enlisted infantry soldier, which is where this came from at that point in time in my life. Your standard infantry soldier never makes it past that high school education, and when they leave, percentages that use the GI Bill, it's there, but let's face it, the percentages of the people that actually use that particular benefit are so low. It's just staggering to me. And, I wanted it to be understandable to them, because that's really who this is for. But then taking it further is, look at the time that we live in right now and stuff, and everything happening around us. And there are good people that'll stand up in the face of evil to do good and everything. But I also wanted to put it out there so that they also know, like, hey, look, and I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. I actually think some of the best times in my life were had when it was during my time in service. But I wanted them to at least know both the good and the bad, and to be able to decide for themselves and go, hey, this is what you're getting into. This is life at its most extreme. And it's a great adventure. It really can be, but it's something that should be taken very seriously, because, this is, not only your lives, but also the lives of the people around you, and the ones that you're trying to protect as well.
With the aftermath of the deployment, you mentioned in your book about media and also government, both, I guess you can kind of say, turning their head, so to speak. Kind of touch on that a little bit.
Turning their head, I don't quite understand what you mean on that. You got to clarify for me.
Oh, well, media not covering and government not acknowledging.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. All right, I see where you're going with that. So I think just because of the 82nd is such a storied unit, and they have so much good history behind it, that you have something like this to where these were not slouches as soldiers. When you have a casualty rate like that, you kind of look at it and you go, man, like what happened there? What was that? And you at first blame maybe the unit and stuff, but you look at these guys, a lot of these guys went forward into special operations after that. And myself included, I went over the side of that street and started going into the schoolhouse over there as well. But when you kind of look back and then you start trying to look for anything having to do with that deployment, because you're like, wow, that was a pretty rowdy deployment. A lot of people got hurt, and killed. When I started going through in the history and looking at the other people that were involved, there was a PJ helicopter, so Air Force Special Operations Pararescue, that would come in and get us, that were amazing. They saved quite a few of the guys' lives that would have been killed otherwise if they hadn't been on station. But one of those crews went down and I didn't know that, and just the multiple EOD and some of the scouts that were with us. And then when you start picking it apart and you see just how big of the picture, you're like, you kind of wonder if it was swept under the rug because it might be embarrassing to command, and you start pulling it apart and looking at egos that were involved in some of the failures that were there. And it's heartbreaking to see some of it, but it's also, when you look, that's also war, and it's something that you signed up to do, and you can only do, it can only go so far, but you do your best, and it might not always bring everybody home, even though you did your best. And that's, again, that's just war. And, you can only continue to try to keep pushing forward in the best way possible.
When it comes to civilians, there's things that we can never understand. When they read this book, what do you hope that they can gain more clarity of when they're done?
I hope that they kind of look at it and they understand, because really this is broken down in a way to where, again, like I had said, high school level, but anybody can really go over it. I've had people contact me, my age bond, parents of people that were there and stuff, and actually reach out and just say, wow, I didn't know it was like this, or I didn't know. Now I understand, I bought this to understand what my son went through, because he won't talk about this time in his life. And it does make me happy that the book is doing its job in that way too, and that it's helping people understand, that really we have lives. We're so fortunate to be where we are, even in some of the areas of the country and stuff that might not be as well off and stuff. Quite honestly, we still have such opportunity here. And when you see that end of life and you see what these guys go through in order to give somebody maybe a good night's sleep, quite honestly, that was one point in the deployment to where villagers were getting pulled out of their beds at night, and either hacked up or beat up, because the Taliban, they would come through and they would pull people out of their beds, very possibly at night, a family that said they were sympathizers, and just to make an example of them. But if you can provide that person, a peaceful night's sleep and stuff, you're doing your job. And when you broke it down to that level over there at one point, that's what it came to, and that's what started breaking for us over there, is like when people started seeing that that's what our mission was, to actually give them a sense of that freedom and then work with them, in making that sustainable for them. But yeah, for people to really see what good men have to go through. And sometimes it's some really hard times, and it makes it relatable. But
we're talking to William Yeske. You can go to his website, damnthevalleybook.com. Grab a copy of the book, Damn the Valley, on Amazon. And when it comes to you personally, when it was time for you to transition out from military into civilian life, what would you say was a learning experience for you during that chapter in your life?
Really, there'd be a few things that I would do slightly differently, but a lot of it is always to keep in touch with the people that you either meet or make friends with along the way and stuff. And, keep that network and of those good people around you, because those guys, they do go forward and they leave, and they might have insights on how they've tackled certain things. Find yourself a mentor out there. Quite honestly, I like the fact that I was able to use the GI Bill sort of as a buffer, and then realize very quickly that, hey, I think I can take some of these skills into the business sector and do some good there. So I pivoted there, but really, it's so much more than just your traditional college education stuff. And a lot of people don't know that. You can use it for, flight school. You can become a pilot if you want to off of, those particular VA education benefits. There's so many different things, but find a mentor, like find out what you want to do, get that clear picture and find a mentor and put everything in towards going that way. Because quite honestly, for myself, I geared towards marketing and stuff. So I would have never really thought that I would be an author like this. But then when I started seeing on how this all ties in to bringing the story to the largest amount of people, it just starts making sense. And I'm like, wow, a lot of this happened for a reason. And I just fell in. I started listening, quite honestly, to what the universe was saying. But there's a lot of others out there that, they need to find somebody and really find that path and have that clear path forwards. And the best way to do that is to find someone who's been there before. We're actually working on a project towards bringing something forward. So stay tuned on that one.
Nice. And if you had the opportunity to talk to someone who they're now a veteran and they're trying to make that transition, you talking to them right now, one-on-one, everyone's situation is different, but with you being able to experience that, what would you say to them to encourage them to, one, not give up, and two, that they're not alone?
Boy, honestly, and everybody, and I know that's exactly why you're saying this, is everybody hits that point to where they feel lonely and they feel that next step isn't there. I've been there myself. I have. Even now, there's even something now that I'm dealing with, the kind of same thing, to where it's like, I don't see the next step in this particular direction. But you just have to keep going. And really it's letting them know that they are here for a purpose, and then that they might not see it and stuff, but it's that same type of resilience that was built into you within the military to keep pushing forward, at least in the right direction. But the other side of the advice, with that push is to be mindful and to know when to take that tactical pause and stop for a second, take a breath, and understand that like things might be like either uncertain or bad right now, but take that pause, take that breath. There is a way forward. You just need to see it sometimes. So, forward movement is good, but then also know when to take a tactical pause.
And if someone is listening to this right now and they feel that they have the calling that they want to go serve, what would you say to that individual as far as encouragement before they take that next big step?
Find somebody who's been there first, and then make sure you talk with them. If they were in the particular MOS or job on where you want to go, if you know a direction, find somebody who's been there, find a mentor. We're out there, ask people questions.
Once again, talking to William Yeske. You can go to his website, damnthevalleybook.com, and grab the book. Also on Amazon. One more question for you. When it comes to civilians, we hear people say, thank you for your service. And I've been told, I interviewed someone Vietnam era, and they say, welcome home. What do you hope civilians can learn, be more educated on when it comes to supporting veterans?
I'd just say is to know that, like, I mean, we appreciate the support. Honestly, there's so much support from the public now, you know, on that end. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Awesome, man. Once again, I want to say thank you to William Yeske taking time talking to us today. Get that copy of the book, Damn the Valley. You can also go to the website, damnthevalleybook.com. Once again, William, thank you for your time.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. It's been great. Appreciate it.